Hello, and welcome to my recap of books 1 to 3 in the Blood and Ash series. Just to let you know, this video is intended for those who only want a brief summary of the series before the War of Two Queens is released on March 15th of this year. So if you could like, comment, and or subscribe, it would mean the absolute world to me. But without further ado, here's the video. So to start off with, from Blood and Ash, we are introduced to the main character, Poppy Belfour, who is more commonly known as the Maiden. The book begins in Macedonia, where she is under the watch of Duke and Duchess Tyrman. We learn of how close she was with Queen Ileana when she was younger, as well as her ability to sense and ease pain. Shortly after the book begins, we are introduced to Hawk Flynn when he kisses her at the Red Pearl, a popular brothel in the city. And after he is promoted to her royal guard, we get to see their relationship evolve steadily over the course of the book. It is only after the Right is attacked and Poppy is recalled to the capital by the Queen that they take their relationship to the next level. A couple things to note before I go further is as of right now, the Ascended are seen as near gods, and that the rite, a process in which all the third and fourth sons and daughters must be given to the temple, go by relatively unquestioned by the people of Solus. The only ones who put up a fight and see the rite for what it truly is the dissenters. The dissenters are a rebel group calling for the Ascended to abdicate their throne to the Atlanteans. Another is that Poppy has had combat training despite her status as the Maiden due to Victor, one of her guards, insisting that she be able to protect herself. On their way back to the capital, they stop for the night in a town called New Haven. Poppy and Hawk sleep together, thereby ruining Poppy's chance of ascension due to her needing to remain pure for the process. At least that's what she believes at the time. The next morning, one of her guards voices his suspicions of Hawk and the town that they are currently staying in. He tries to drag her to the stables and ride off with her, but Kieran, another one of her guards, attempts to stop them before he reveals himself as a Wolven. The Wolven are citizens of Atlantia and are in close relationship with the elemental Atlanteans and thereby an enemy of Solus. Hawk intercepts them as they are fleeing from Kieran, kills her other guards, and reveals himself as an Atlantean. We learn of his plan to use Poppy as ransom to retrieve Prince Malik from the Ascended, but his plans quickly change when he bites her and learns of her Atlantean descent. After discovering that, he instead decides to bring her back to Atlantia to become his bride. And that marks the end of From Blood and Ash. In A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, we learn of the true horrors of the rite, as well as the Ascended not being actual gods. Poppy eventually accepts that everything she knew was a lie, and after hearing Castile's reasons for proposing to her, she agrees to marry him. Due to her status as the Maiden, she essentially holds all the lies of the Ascended together. If they're seen together, it could weaken or sever the hold the Ascended have over Solus, and they may be able to negotiate with the Blood Crown to avoid the unavoidable bloodshed of war. They eventually leave New Haven, even after a few setbacks, and make their way back to Spess's End, a town destroyed in the war that's just on the border to Atlantia, though it has been secretly restored and reclaimed by the Atlanteans. Castile has some issues with his bloodlust, as Atlanteans who have bonded with someone else will find the thought of drinking from anyone else entirely repulsive. But Poppy allows him to drink from her, so that issue is quickly solved. Poppy, after a young Wolven is injured, attempts to use her abilities to take away his pain, but she somehow is able to heal him completely. At that moment, they don't quite know how she was able to do it. The Ascended are spotted making their way to Spess's End with a sizable army backing them, and on the eve of battle, Poppy and Castile get married. Their marriage is blessed by Nyctos, the king of the gods, as he turns the sky to night with his approval. A battle ensues, and they begin to lose before Atlantean reinforcements arrive. After the battle, a small group of them leave to head over the mountains into Atlantia, and the mist that protects the border nearly causes Poppy to run off a cliff, but a god awoke from its slumber to protect her. Upon arriving in Atlantia, Poppy and Cass are split up, and Poppy is taken to view the chambers of Nyctos while she waits. When she arrives, she is attacked by an unnamed group before she manages to kill them with her then unknown powers and inadvertently calls the Wolven to her. Castile and his parents arrive shortly after, and the Queen takes one look at her and what she did before declaring that they should all bow before the last descendant of the gods, before she who carries the blood of the King of the Gods and their new Queen. And that marks the end of the second novel. The Crown of Gilded Bones begins with how A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire left off, and we discover that Poppy had broken all the woven bonds and that they are now hers to command. She is rendered unconscious by Alistair and other members of the Unseen. The Unseen are Atlanteans who are tasked with protecting Atlantia and deem the children of the gods, as well as their descendants, to be a threat to the kingdom. She is nearly handed over to the Ascended before Castile and others manage to rescue her. Though one of the Unseen gravely wounds Poppy, and Castile, in a moment of panic, goes through the motion of changing her into an Ascended to save her life. When she wakes, we discover that she, while being completely healed and no longer mortal, did not ascend. When they make it back to Atlantia, Poppy is greeted with people calling to her as their Lisa. Mehi Lisa is the full title, and directly translates to My Queen. We learn that since Poppy has a direct claim and right to the throne as a descendant of the gods, she would usurp any queen who would seek to rule in Atlantia, including Castile's mother, Eloena. Poppy is still unsure if she wishes to take the throne before the Blood Crown sends a message that they wish to discuss the future of their respective kingdoms. Poppy and Cass accept, but as Valen and Eloena, the current rulers of Atlantia, had already begun to prepare for a war they deem as inevitable, Poppy decides to take the crown before they depart to prevent the war from starting. At the meeting, Queen Ileana reveals that she was the first Ascended, also known as Isabeth, and is Poppy's mother. We also learn that Isabeth went through all this, rebelling against Atlantia, capturing the 2 Atlantean princes, all because Queen Eloena took Malak away from her and killed the son they shared. Isabeth has created an army of seemingly unkillable soldiers called the Revenants, with only the Draken being able to kill them. She also reveals that Malak, Poppy's presumed father, was not just a deity as they had assumed. He, as the child of Nyktos, was a god, which makes Poppy a god as well, not just a deity. At the end of the meeting, Isabeth kills Ian, takes Cass, though allows Poppy to leave with Tawny, Poppy's former maid and companion, as a sign of her goodwill, all due to the fact that Poppy had refused to hand over Atlantia to her. Poppy nearly destroys the city upon discovering Isabeth took Cass, but a handmaiden, who is also a revenant, stepped in and stopped her. Tawny ended up being injured, though Poppy wasn't able to heal her past the physical wounds. She was not able to rid her of the poison. Poppy goes to Elysium, but Nyktos has returned to his slumber. Nyktos greets them instead and reveals that Malak is not her father. That Iris, Malak's twin, is actually the one who sired her. She, after speaking with Nyktos, finally summons the Draken. The book ends with Poppy killing King Jalara, Isabeth's husband, in retaliation for Isabeth's capturing of Castile and for threats against her kingdom. Poppy sends a message to Isabeth that should she not return Castile to her, she will topple any city she seeks refuge in and destroy the armies that stand between them. That should Cass be harmed, she will kill Malak due to her now knowing how to find where he was entombed. And she finishes off by stating that she carries the blood of the King of the Gods in her, and is the Queen of Flesh and Fire, that the Dragon, the guards of the gods, ride with her, and to inform the Blood Queen to prepare for war. And that marks the end of the 3rd book. To quickly add though, the history of the Ascended is relatively important to the series, so I will go over it as briefly as I can. To firstly distinguish between the 2 species though, the Atlanteans are born essentially mortal, but once they reach a certain age and go through the culling, they become near immortals. The Ascended are mortals who are made into immortals by having their blood drained and consuming the blood of an Atlantean. But the creation of the Ascended, while being a relatively long story, can be summed up into King Malak creating the first Ascended to save his mistress Isabeth, and the War of the 2 Kings breaking out when the Atlanteans and mighty mortals tried to rid the world of the Ascended due to their insatiable bloodlust and inadvertent creation of the Craven. The Craven are mindless monsters created by the Ascended when they drain a mortal, and have plagued the kingdom of Solus since the Ascended were created. And that marks the end of the recap. And now for some personal notes. I will admit that I am quite nervous about Castile's fate with his current imprisonment by the Blood Crown. I don't know what will happen in the next book, but I imagine the war will begin, and we'll get to see Poppy truly come into her powers on the battlefield. I am also interested in seeing Poppy and Kieran's relationship with Cass being gone. I'm not referring to the joining Armentrout is hinted at, though there is certainly that, but merely their friendship. I feel like they'll become much closer over the War of 2 Queens, but only time will tell if that's true. So if you made it to the end of the video, firstly I want to say thank you for listening, and secondly I hope that you have a gloriously bookish inspired day ahead of you. Goodbye for now.